Hey, good morning, and welcome to Your Personal Health with a little bit of a different twist on here called Baby Steps. And it's a show that we're helping new parents, new mothers who are expecting, or maybe they're in that 0 to 6 month range, really kind of ask and answer some questions that let's face it, when you unpack that baby, it did not come with an owner's manual. In fact, there's not even a QR code to scan to find out, hey, what do I do now? And so we have Dr. Burris and Dr. Kim in the house, and it's serious because Dr. Burris let her hair down. And so we are really going to dive into it. If you're just joining us, we've been talking about this last week, and we're talking about newborns and a couple of reasons we're doing this, and then we'll get into it. A couple of reasons. One is there is a shortage of pediatricians around the country, as well as primary care physicians. There's a lot of those that during the COVID, they decided, hey, this was a great point for them to jump off. And then secondarily, some of the people that are coming through medical school have decided, hey, I'm going to specialize, which means a shortage of that. So a lot of times what happens is a parent, a mother and a father, if you will come through that process with their OBGYN. And then okay, now where do I go? And so that's why we're bringing Dr. Burris and Dr. Kim on, because they have a very unique process at Coachella Valley Direct Primary Care Physicians that help you with that, with Dr. Burris being a pediatrician. So I want to welcome them both to the show. Dr. Burris, Dr. Kim, welcome you guys.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
Did you guys have a nice weekend?
Yes. It was kind of a whirlwind with teenagers, but that's okay.
Yeah, I feel like they're back into most of their activities now, so we're getting back to those pre-COVID levels of busyness, which it's kind of a shock, I have to admit.
It does seem like there is a mindset out there like, hey, this really never happened, and we're just kind of back at it, isn't it?
Yeah, there's still some, differences, but overall, I think just the actual number of events that are happening seems to be fairly close to normal.
Yeah, we were at an event at La Quinta Resort and PJ West at the hotel over the weekend, and it was an outdoor event. And I have to say, there were probably a couple thousand people there in a fairly small area, and
Wow.
I don't know if there were many people wearing masks. I kind of kept my distance. We were near the court, so we were kind of separated a little bit. But it's like, to me, it looked like nothing really was. It was almost like pre-COVID. And I guess in a way that's a good thing. And then in a way that's not a good thing. And I know that's not the reason of our show here today, but it's, as you said, hey, it's just kind of things getting back to normal. And you guys probably experience it more than most because you have 3 kiddos, right? They're kind of getting back in activities and this, that, and the other.
Yeah, we're almost done with our last child's vaccinations, and then I think we'll sort of relax a little bit more, but not a lot, because there's a lot of unknowns going into this winter. So we'll probably still keep a few safeguards in place.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what's the forecast for the flu and winter, the flu season for this year? I mean, I know the last year we talked about that. There was almost no sign of it because we were masked up. We were having the distancing. What do you see this year? Are there any early signs of that?
We're starting to see uptick in COVID. Not so much flu yet, but our pattern here in the Coachella Valley is for flu to really start hitting us about a month after other areas, primarily because people travel into our area with the flu, and that's how it gets here. So as we're seeing more people coming back to the valley from other parts of the country, that usually sort of starts at simmering, and then about 2 to 4 weeks later, we see a big outbreak. So my guess is that this year, with the events like you're describing, I mean, people are pretty much back to normal in a lot of their behaviors. We're probably going to have a pretty decent flu year. And we're likely to see another bump in COVID cases.
Wow. Well, if you're just joining us, this is your personal health, and we're talking specifically. The theme of it is baby steps, and this is for parents who are about to expect their first child, or maybe they've just delivered and they're kind of at home and kind of figure this whole thing out. And we'd like to have Dr. Burris and Dr. Kim be your resource for all things making baby and their lives better, and quite frankly, your lives better. So I just want you to do me a favor and peel back the layers a little bit and tell me when it turned back the hands of time. When you guys were expecting your first newborn, I mean, it was probably a happy time, but probably no stress, right? Oh, geez, I think I just hit a nerve there. Sorry. I
um,
could see like stories coming out of your head, like those little pop-up bubbles, like, oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
God.
Well, I actually think it's probably good for people to hear that it is totally normal to not feel universally excited about having a baby.
Uh,
there there's a lot that comes with it. Some of it's fun, some of it's exciting, some of it's really hard, some of it's painful. So it's normal to have a variety of emotions around the issue. Um, and I think people need to hear that it's okay to not be always excited or looking forward to having a new baby, because it is a lot of change, and change is stressful, and there's a
I'm
lot of unknowns about it, and the unknown is stressful.
Yeah, I'm just curious if there was a difference in emotions and feelings between you, Dr. Kim, and Dr. Burris, and if so, what were they for that first
Oh, you
baby?
mean, well, it's hard because we were both working, we were both in residency, um, and it was you know uh, doctors have a different schedule than most people. But as a universal whole, it was some days it was exciting, some days you're like, what do we do? Some days it was we got to get the place ready, and it's always throughout the theme is, oh, did I just screw up my kid? What did I do? What, is my did I by doing this or not doing this? Am I harming them? In the grand scheme of things, everyone does the best they can, and I don't think there's um, any one path that makes someone's kid um, different versus turning out who they're going to be despite what we do. So
Yeah, and I think I had this moment like closer to the end of pregnancy where I realized, you know what, this thing has to get out somehow. And when I had that sort of like, I can't escape this, this is actually happening moment, you would think I was older, I was already a doctor, but I still had that moment of panic of like, how is this gonna happen? You know? So all of that happens, and I think actually Mike he probably handled it better than I did, as far as just being kind of even keel. I had a lot of ups and downs, and like days where I was really excited, and days I wouldn't even talk about it. I'm like, I don't think it's not happening. No, no,
Um,
no. And this is a baby that was planned and wanted and waited for. So theoretically, we were prepared in every way we could have been, um, but it was still scary.
well, I
yeah,
think
and the same things you see in movies and TV shows, but the cravings there, happened, and it was yeah.
now, Dr. Kim, you said cravings. Did you have some cravings, Dr. Kim?
I did. I had cravings to play golf. No.
Get
Yeah,
out of the
waiting for
house.
6 hours. No, 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 no.
uh, Take
No,
an
I
extra shift at the
literally,
hospital. Yeah.
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 Well, I'm just curious. So, when we're talking about mindset, what are some of the things that you can offer that parent, both female and male, that that are pre-delivery? Like you said, this was a baby. Your first was a planned pregnancy, and you kind of knew it was coming. It wasn't an accident. It was all this stuff was in line. And yet there were still some ups and downs. What kind of things can you offer those people who are watching either now or in a recorded version? They can say, hey, this is okay. These are some of the things that I went through, some of the emotions, and this is normal.
I would say that talking to one or two people, but not like 20 people, is helpful. Because if you are nervous about something, talking to someone who's been through it can be helpful. But often people want to share their horror stories, and often what that does is increase your anxiety. So you really want to talk to someone either who's had a lot of children, so they've had many experiences that they can kind of give you a better viewpoint, or you want to talk to someone who's delivered a lot of babies and had some of their own as well. So that's someone who's got a broad experience as far as what it's like, the process, what to expect. So I found that if you talk to 20 people, say at your baby shower, you just get 20 of the worst possible stories that you could, and they scare you. So I think talking to one or two people is helpful. After I had our first child, I actually called a bunch of my friends and I said, "Why did you have another one?" Because I just could not imagine getting to the point where I was enjoying the process. And none of them helped me. They all said things like, "Oh, it just gets harder." And I'm like, well, then I'm going to die. So now, when I'm talking to someone who's at that point, I'm very careful to say, it gets better. So talk to someone who's going to be encouraging.
Did you ever seek out or find like books or articles that or resources you can say, hey, this is that balance we're looking for, and it really was from somebody who had either delivered a lot of babies or had a lot of children, and they looked at it from a, as you described that, it made me think, yeah, I mean, if we're running tests, we don't just do it on one person, we do it on a lot of people, and then say, okay, how did that work out? Were there resources out there that you guys moved into to say, hey, this is a better plan, or were there resources like that available?
Well, it's a little unfair because there's a lot of unknowns that we knew because of residency and being who we were. All that part of it wasn't quite as unknown. But at least for me, it was more the picking the brains of the nurses that did a lot of newborn stuff. What's the best way you found how to wrap a newborn, because they notoriously will get out of their swaddling and they love to be cuddled, and it's more wisdom through talking to people who've been around babies, who had babies. For me, there wasn't one book or resource that I read.
I probably read a lot more than you. I read a lot of the what to expect when you're expecting type of books. I did more online searches. I searched new mom groups. I kind of like looked and saw what kind of support was out there. And some of it I thought was really helpful, and some of it was just a bunch of opinion. But the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, was kind of like the Bible of pregnancy at the time when I was having my first baby. So that's the one I read. It's really not a bad resource, but the problem is with all of these things, they kind of give you these dates where this is supposed to happen at this point. And if it doesn't, it sort of induces panic because they're thinking, oh, something's wrong. So there came a point where I think Mike had to take the book away from me because I was getting really stressed. And we knew there was nothing wrong, but I was like obsessing. It's like, okay, today's the day I should be doing this, and this isn't happening. And in reality, pregnancy doesn't really follow that kind of cookbook timetable. So it's
So
more
it
of a
sounds like,
general guidelines.
yeah, so it sounds like it really just as a guide, not as an absolute.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And I think
Um,
nowadays Google is probably going to be like everything not helpful because you're going to get inundated with everything, both good but also bad. And usually people try to, I guess they focus on the bad because they don't want it, and it just makes people more anxious. So I'm not a fan of people going to Google because you're going to get yourself down rabbit holes.
it's a very deep hole, isn't it? I mean, it's like you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and what are you going to do? You're going to pick up your smartphone or get on the computer, and you're going to start searching. And let's face it, it's fairly sensationalized. It sounds like with the information. I guess it's one of those things. If a person saw a car accident, by the time it's told 3 or 4 times, it was catastrophic. All it was is they stopped short and bumped a car. It could be that way. Am I oversimplifying it, or is that sometimes what
No,
happens?
and also the way I think that the internet sort of works and the way people try to grab attention, so you'll read the article, is they, you know, tend to lead with a sensational. Um, but in reality, I think that if you get a hold of a reputable guide, and maybe talk to the OBGYN about what they recommend, and then try not to do research on the internet because
Mm,
basically you start to end up in like just a sea of people telling you that everything is dangerous,
mm.
um, and to the point where you really don't know who to trust. So I just encourage people maybe not to do that. I don't know if we can help ourselves sometimes, but if you find that you're getting really anxious or really worried, that's the first thing I would do is sort of step back from the internet and go back to maybe some more reputable, and limit yourselves a little bit on what your intake of fear mongering.
Mm.
Because there's so many things that you can spend time trying to protect your child from, and it's not a bad impulse and it's good, um, but the list is endless, to the point where you can become overwhelmed by it and actually paralyzed by it. So
Mm.
we don't want that to happen to people.
If you're just joining us, this is Your Personal Health with Dr. Kim and Dr. Burris, and we're taking baby steps when it comes to having a newborn and really kind of working through that first 6 months. And today we're just talking about kind of the mindset of what it's like when the baby is going to be arriving. And even though you're planning it out, it can still be somewhat hectic. And so we're kind of peeling back the layers with Dr. Kim and Dr. Burris because they have 3 children. And it wasn't so long ago that they had those 3 children, not all at one time, just one at a time, and what that was like. Some great feedback. If you're just joining us, this is a live show. Please put your questions in the comments section. We'd love to jump in there and talk about that. I wanted to hitch a ride on this OBGYN because again, I'm not a parent, and I'm just curious that okay, the OBGYN, that's a doctor that the woman is going to during the time she's pregnant. But what happens after that? I mean, is there a transition? Is there a natural handoff where the OBGYN says, okay, you're going to go see Dr. XYZ? Or is that additional responsibility of the parents to say, hey, you need to go find it. You need to go find a pediatrician now because after this baby delivers, I'm tagging out.
There's still some small town maybe doctors or rare doctors who are family practice doctors and who are actually still delivering babies. This isn't very common anymore, but you may find some places like that, so that um, that doctor that delivers the baby would then go on to care for both the mother and the child. But much more commonly is that the child would be delivered, if they're delivered in a hospital, then it's normally by an OB doctor. And they may be also delivered by assistance with a midwife, a nurse midwife, or a doula. And those are all different people that assist in the birthing process. And then usually the baby is then transitioned into the care of a pediatrician after birth. And if the birth is considered high risk, or if there's a problem, often the pediatrician will be there at the delivery for immediate care of the infant. If it's a fairly routine delivery, the pediatrician may not see the baby until the next day. And then the initial vital signs and care of the baby would actually be done by the labor and delivery nurses, who honestly are very skilled in the care of brand newborns. And some of them are just phenomenal at what they do. So
when you talk about that, is that something that you guys, I know you're not a small town doctor, we're in a, 500,000 people here in the desert, but because you offer the primary care for anyone, and then you also are a pediatrician, are you a resource for those people who are saying, hey, we don't really have that lined up yet? Because I can't even imagine the additional stress that causes. Is like, okay, you're going through this pregnancy, you got 9 months, you probably should start lining this up. But as we said before, there's a bit of a shortage here in the desert and nationwide about pediatricians. Does Coachella Valley Direct Primary Care offer that after birth care? Do you guys get involved in that?
Yep, we both can do that. We're both trained for that. And we are able to take care of anyone from day 1 of life to day 100 of life and beyond. So that is something that we can do. We can certainly interface with the OBGYNs. We can do it after the fact if they don't have any. One of the big problems out here is that it's hard to, if you don't already have a kid with a pediatrician, it's hard to get a new patient appointment out here.
Mm.
The other thing that can happen is when you're pregnant, if you have other medical conditions, often the OB that you're seeing won't treat you for the other problems. But then your primary care doctor may not be comfortable in treating a woman who's pregnant. And so there are some people who end up in these sort of in-between places. And we're quite comfortable at being a primary care doctor for pregnant women and working in conjunction with their OB to make sure that all their needs are being met. And then after the woman delivers, usually the OB only sees them one more time at 6 weeks, unless there's another issue. So because of that, there's this transition for the new mom where they're like with the OB and they're like just being seen, and then boom, everything's over.
Mm.
And yet for a new mom, that's often a time where they really could use some support. And often medical issues will pop up for the moms as well.
Yeah. And then there's a small segment of moms who qualify for insurance because they're pregnant. And then once their pregnancy is over, they don't have that automatic qualification. And so for us, we recommend insurance because we think it's good, but you don't have to have insurance in order to have us as your care provider.
So when we talk about, again, I don't expect to be experts at this, but we talk about what that you're our out of area or we're in area. Are you on a list, or can anyone come see you guys?
Oh, anyone can come see us. We're not in or out of anyone's network. We're in everyone's network in the sense that we don't belong to a specific insurance or group. We want to be primary care doctors and fill that need, even though we think insurance is good because there are things like, you wouldn't want us to deliver your baby. It's been a while. But we can if we had to, if you're on a deserted island. And but short of that, we don't require insurance, where most physicians if you're not on their, if they're not on the insurance list, they can't take you.
I'm just curious of one follow-up question. It's a little bit of a scary question, if whatever the answer might be is, what kind of percentage do you, if you had to guesstimate, and maybe you know this, of parents that move through the delivery process, they come out the other side and they can't get a primary care or a pediatrician,
Um,
and they're depending on emergency care or urgent care.
Often what happens is, if you belong to any kind of insurance, including things like Medi-Cal or IEHP, they assign you a doctor and you may not even get a choice. And the problem with that is that if that doctor's overwhelmed, it might be hard for them to get you in. I will say most of the pediatricians really prioritize newborns because they know how important it is to see them right away. So I want to give the shout out to them because they will work long and hard days in order to make sure that those newborns get in. But it can be a little difficult, and you may find that you're waiting long times for regular type of appointments. I know when our second was born here in the Valley, we had a hard time finding a pediatrician, and they initially offered us an appointment like 6 months out for a newborn visit. And I said, no, that's not okay. I really had to push. And eventually they offered me something about a 2-hour drive. So depending on what's going on in the area, it can be a little tricky.
How many relationships do you have with like OBGYNs to help become that referral source for their patients? Because I'm sure it makes their life better knowing that, hey, there's going to be this seamless handoff, almost like that perfect baton pass in a relay race, that everyone is going to be okay and they're not going to have to drive several hours or given that option, or they're not going to be able to get in for 6 months. Are those kind of relationships that you have or you're working on?
Yeah, we know several OBGYN doctors out there. We know pediatricians. We are trying to work and help the system so that people get resources and can utilize what really works best for them in their schedule and who they are. So we have several resources, and we know most of the obstetricians out here in the Valley.
I love it. Well, you know what I've done is I put your information on the screen there. 760-642-5549 is a number. If you or someone you know needs a primary care physician, or you're just here visiting the Valley because your program offers that short-term or long-term care, it's a month-to-month type of thing, right? It's not like this, you sign up for 12 months and there's a point where you can get in the insurance like there is now. There's this open enrollment thing that you can call Coachella Valley Direct Primary Care and get in. The other piece that I love about what you do is the fact that when you call the number on the screen, you guys are going to answer, or someone in your office is going to answer, and it really is not, it's very personal. Like, you seem to want to get to know your patients, unlike, and again, this is a pressure on the system. This is not a derogatory mark against the doctors. Because of the pressure they're under to see so many people, you guys can spend some quality time and really get to know those people. And you said earlier about this kind of this, small town feeling. I get that every time I'm around you guys, that, hey, you can spend some time with us and really get to know us. And with that in mind, you really can be my primary care physician and really take care of my personal health. Is there a way besides the phone number, like the best way to get a hold of you guys, or would you prefer they just give you a call?
They can text or call that number. It's both. And we can talk to them over the phone, or they can want to come in. We don't charge for, a 20-minute consultation, just to make sure that everyone understands, what's going to be the best for the patient.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys spending so much time with us today and really focusing on taking baby steps. And we're going to continue to talk about this because we really just talked today about mindset. I'm looking forward to next time we get together next Monday at 11:30 a.m. I'd like to talk about, hey, those conditions that we think are helpful or hurtful for the growth of the child. And I think of, my parents, there's always those wives' tales. My grandma says, okay, you do this. And I remember as a kid, and we don't want to get into this, just a little teaser, that they said, if you grow up and you're trying to make it always so quiet for that baby, you need to make it the same environment that they're going to grow up in. If they live in a noisy household, they should learn to live and grow up in a noisy household. Otherwise, they can't sleep unless it's perfectly quiet. I don't know how that is because, hey, I was a baby. I was sleeping all the time anyway. And I can sleep under any condition. So maybe I was one of those kids. I don't know. Maybe my mom followed my grandma's suggestions, but we're going to dive into more of that. So if you're watching this and you're saying, geez, I wish I'd have been there. I missed this live. You can catch us live every Monday at 11:30 a.m. right here on Facebook and YouTube for Coachella Valley Direct Primary Care. We welcome your questions. We take them live, and Dr. Burris and Dr. Kim would love to help you out. In the meantime, reach out to them at 760-642-5549 or text them or go to their website and find out more about them. It is a great, great alternative to the normal, I guess you have to say normal, chain of events that you have to go through to get a doctor. So guys, thank you so much for joining us. Any last thoughts before we wrap up today?
No, overall, it is a really exciting thing to have a baby, and there are a lot of positives. So I do want to put that out there. I just want to normalize. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's a lot of everything involved.
I love it. So we're going to dive into those things. And again, I'd love for you to bring those questions and let's just ask those questions. Hey, is this normal or is this abnormal? What should we do under those situations? Until next time, my name is Jeff Harrison. I want to thank Dr. Kim and Dr. Burris for being here. Guys, thank you so much. You bring such a wealth of knowledge and comfort, especially for those expecting parents. We'll see you again next week on Your Personal Health with Dr. Burris and Dr. Kim. Take care. Bye-bye.